back for part 3. We got our first snow last night, so it's a little cold outside. I actually got to turn the heater on in the garage here a little bit, and hopefully it warms back up over the weekend. I can get that car put away in the trailer for the winter. We left off with getting the front end straightened out. I'd thrown down a couple more welds right at the end of the last video, and now both front frame rails are within about a 32nd of each other in all 3 dimensions. So that's good. I haven't done the back rail here yet, so that's probably what I'm going to jump into right away. I'm going to have to cut this rear end housing back out because that passenger side rear rail is tapered a little bit, and the rear end's kind of holding the shape because I need to get it to pull in right past the gusset here, and the rear end's behind that, so it's not letting it pull in and get straightened out. Luckily back there I just got to pull it in from the side, up and down, it's good. So here's the interesting part about the thermal expansion of this. I put 2 passes on there and it already pushed it the opposite direction, bowed it out by 3/16 of an inch. Since then it's already cooled down, it's only at an 1/8 now. It's already pulling back in from the shrinkage. So we just gotta wait for it to cool all the way down and see how much we actually pulled it in total. You can almost just watch it move on the tape measure here. While I'm back and forth on getting the rear frame rails straightened out now, I just wanted to tack in this mid plate. Even though it's being held up with the 90-degree magnets, I can see it's not perfectly straight, but maybe tack it in a little bit better and I'll try to hook the engine up to it. But I don't know, I'm going to take some measurements off of it first, see if I can figure out about where the front suspension is going to go. If it seems like I've got a ton of room, I'm just going to go for it. If it seems like it's going to be pretty tight, then I'm going to try to mock up the engine and maybe even the transmission, although I don't have the adapter plate yet. Now before I get too far along on even trying to guess where things are going in the front, I want to mark the wheelbase. So they have the rear center line marked on the frame rail back there already. So I'm just going to measure off the back of the frame rails because that is consistent on both of those rails. Up to the front here with 108, which is the wheelbase on G-body. And I'm going to mark the frame rails up here just so that I have a good reference on this end of the car and not trying to chase back and forth making guesses with a tape measure. Now the important measurement that I'm going for off of the engine here is going to be from that mid plate to the front plate, which is going to mount off of this timing cover surface. And on the Oldsmobile block here, that is, yeah, we're maybe a 32nd under 24 inches. So I'm just going to call it 24 inches, add in the mid plate just to know where that's at. And then we'll have an idea of where the front of the engine block is anyway, as far as anything trying to do with the lower control arms. Basically, I know back to this header I've got room, so we'll see where it works out. So if the engine's just shy at 24, like just barely, or we just call it right on 24, and then my front plate's a 1/4 inch thick, we're only a 1/16 to an 1/8 inch off. Probably a 1/16, maybe even less, as far as where that front plate ends up to wheel center line. So for sure the engine, all of it's going to be behind center of the front axle. But it makes it easy where I know that that center line is exactly where the front of the engine is, so now I can kind of plan around that as far as what room I'm going to have for a cross member in the front. Alright, it's been several hours of staring at this thing, trying to figure out what to do for the cross member, because I can't just put a piece on and expect to have no problem making everything else fill in later like I can for the majority of the rest of it. I I mean, really, I'm not even looking at the rear end right now because that's going to be easy peasy compared to what the front end is. There's just so much stuff that relies on each other in the front end, and if it's all based off the cross member, I kind of have to have a plan for all of that right off the bat. I've decided I'm not messing around with the sway bar tube or anything yet. That's going to be like last thing after I figure out everything else, because as I was thinking about where I could put that, it kept snowballing back to where's the rack gonna go. And where the rack mounts is determined by where the ball joints are and where the steering rod has to end up. And then once I got looking at all that, I realized that, even for the rack mount here, I have all this underneath, so I can't just like line that up with the top of a cross member, or that's going to be hitting. So this almost has to be above a cross member, so either that's, ending up with a bunch of spacer underneath it, which is kind of what I've arrived on, is I'll end up doing 1 inch of spacer here. That way the cross member can run underneath. I can use this bracket, and it'll clear everything possible steering off of the rack because it'll be right here. And then instead of going up like I would, just my brain was working, I'm going to go down with the pivot. So the pivot will be down here, and then I'll line up better with the lower control arm pivot, which will be, out a little farther and back, but we're going to try to get them in line. So really, it kept snowballing back to I need to put this rack in and figure out what to do. I started planning out for doing a laser cut kind of setup. Some of it's going to have to be laser cut because I want to put the slots in so that I can use those slugs for adjustment. And after messing around with that for a while, I've arrived at this. Even to get at the point of arriving at this design, I had to commit to a few parts. But this should be where I can use that 1.5 by 3 inch piece of tubing I already have laying over there. I can cut it, notch it, put these bends in, same thing I did with the frame rail. That piece should be plenty long enough to be able to take these bends and reach. So I'll be lined up with the bottom of the frame, come out, put a bend in it. I don't even know what angle this is, it's where it fits. I needed it to have at least 1.25 inch radius here. I just decided that 4.5 inches out was going to be a good spot to go. I'll have a little bit of wiggle room here to finalize. And I needed to be at least 6 inches of clearance here because that steering is going to come up through the space right here. So I know I'm for sure going to clear that because it'll be, right in this window here between 3 and 6 inches from center line, which is this line over here. So I know the steering will fit. I know I have room to make sure that my lower control arm stuff is going to fit, and then I'll just have to figure out what angle this is. This drawn line here will be a bracket that welds on underneath the cross member and goes over and ties into the frame. So I'll need one like that. Also, where the spacing front to back is set up, I have it figured out where I should be able to have one underneath, because I got to have 1.75 inch spacing between them for the bushings, or for the rod ends and bushings I plan on using. The other one will continue across, line up with the top edge, go up, and then go up to the top of the frame, and it'll like sit on the outside of the cross member. So one on the outside, one underneath in the middle, because it's 3 inches wide, and with the 1.75 inch spacing, we'll have one flush, 1.75 inch of spacing, and then I'll need the other one on there. I'm also going to have a couple of gussets just for around these slots on the plates, because then I can make the plates out of 1/8 inch, and then I can do a little bit stronger gusseted section, because I got to have at least 3/8 thick for those slugs to sit into without sticking into the inside bore. Now, what I have committed to as far as parts over here, I've already ordered them, so that's I'm gonna be sticking with it now. Is I ordered that Speedway AFX spindle like I did on the other car. I'm real happy with how that worked out. I'm gonna do the same hybrid lower ball joint, so I can have a screw-in ball joint, and it goes up to the larger B-body style 10-degree taper. So I have a reamer here, so I'm gonna ream that out. It also makes that like a 1/16 larger diameter on the lower ball joint, so it's stronger. The upper, I'm going to do a little different. I'm going to go to a screw-in ball joint on the upper as well. It'll be sticking with the 7-degree taper on the upper. I believe that ball joint should go right in. I mean, the taper's the same. I guess it's just the stack up on the height. Maybe I might have to mill the spindle a little bit to expose some more threads, or add a washer to make sure that I have enough thread with it all bottoming out. Either way, that should work. It makes for a nice, easy, just pick a length and order it upper control arm. So that's what I did. It's going to be pretty much a symmetrical on-center upper control arm, which is what I was planning anyway. With the heights here, how it's working out, I think on the other car we're either 8-inch or 8.5 long uppers, and they're going to be 11 on here. And the reason we're going to be 11, if you aren't noticing, is this tire is spaced out more so we can work with our steering. Moved it out 2.5 inches per side. So rather than an outside wheel dimension of 69.5, we are going to go to 74.5. And we'll worry about how that fits on the car later. I think even just, I don't know. I know I can get at least an inch or 2 inch of that by pulling on the fender, like a lot, because that's what I did on the other car. And the rest of it, I don't know. I had the idea of spacing out the rear of the fenders to give it kind of a wide body setup. I mean, either way, we're committing to this. That car's going to end up being wide bodied in some sort of form. Because I don't want to do just basic stupid flares on it. If anything, it'll be box flares. But we're a long ways off from that. This is all just freaking, you know, cue the music kind of stuff.
Do you want a close-up of you welding?
Well, I don't know. You do what you feel like over there. You're the guy. You're the guy that knows the things, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
If you know about cameras, take over, because it is not my field.
Okay, I have a BS degree in television productions.
Perfect. You got a bullshitter's degree?
You damn strippy, I do.
Shit, I didn't even go to school for one of those. I just got it from my grandpa. Was the camera rolling for that? Because I'd put that
Also,
clip in.
yes, but also, I am just focused on your crotch.
This ain't that kind of show.
But if it makes money,
Zooming out.
that kind of show, right?
I tell my wife this, but she's like, nope.
If it generates YouTube music, that kind of show.
It's a little bit off. Weird, this table's not flat. Alright. It's better. Pretty good, a little bent up at the end. Do what we did before, just go back.
I mean, that makes sense to me.
I mean, it works. Where'd the scribe go?
It's somewhere.
Yeah.
That's footage right there. Riveting footage. Finding the, what do you say? Scribe. Yeah.
Yeah, a little blue thing. There it
Oh.
is.
Happy birthday to the ground.
I know it's 29, but we're gonna measure it anyway, just because.
Got my ugly mug cross-sectional in there.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ross.
Yep.
We'll have to blur that out. Graphic
Yeah,
imaging.
you're gonna have to, otherwise the camera's liable to melt to keep doing that.
And then
Dude, why do you think I'm the camera guy? I know what's up.
yeah,
Important
he
to-
hides behind it.
It's important to understand reality, right?
Well, that's why you mark that thing. Oh, yeah.
Hit it with the pointy tool.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. He's marking it twice. Oh, baby.
That's he marked terrifying.
A third time? He's insatiable.
Incorrigible.
I don't even know the meaning of the word. Does it line up? Did it work?
Yeah, lines up perfect.
I meant to kick out. Nice catch. Yeah, look at that.
I did fall off the channel iron.
Nice. Okay, now say something witty.
He doesn't have any wit left.
I was thinking like a glove or...
Oh no, it fits really nice. Now I just gotta get the spacers stack up to hold it in place, but
Spacers.
alright. We have a cross member. Ooh. I've done that so many times now.
Drilling holes
Not the drilling holes part.
with a drill.
Just the drilling part of it is what
Oh,
is
sorry.
going to get the
I should-
views.
I should, okay.
You guys are ruining my channel.
Or enhancing. Dynamic camera shots.
That's what post-production editing is for.
Dynamic drilling. Dun, 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 dun. Stunning cooling shot. God, if that goes into your leg, I'm gonna laugh my ass off. Dynamic drilling. Okay, so what are you doing with that again?
Gotta make a spacer plate for the rack in order to clear the cross member that we made because of the way the steering input comes out of it. So we gotta space it up. I'm using this 1/4 inch aluminum plate. I got some 3/4 inch spacers over there, so we'll bolt through all of that into the rack, and then I can set the rack on there, make sure that the height's gonna clear so we don't have any problems with the steering shaft hitting anything, and then I'll weld the bracket on.
Perfect. Now, could you say the thing about the thing?
Zoom in on that. It looks like I know what I'm doing. Here, set that corner right on that front. There you go. Okay. All right, now you come back up. That's a little tricky. Let's set down. Yep. today I got the cross member fabbed up and the rack mount positioned. Now going forward, I'll need to get the rack put back in so that I can shoot a laser and determine where the lower control arm pivot points are going to make sure that I'm going to wind up with being able to have no bump steer. Right now we set the engine in though. I want to get some brackets made up for the front plate for holding the engine in place. These are going to be the only motor mounts. There won't be anything coming off the side of the block, so I'll have plenty of room down the side for headers. And I should put the heads and headers back on here just to verify that we have clearance for everything. But I don't know, it seems like it didn't get a ton done today, but at the same time it was a lot of big steps because we got the engine in and fitted and getting that cross member done, because I was, much like the transmission cross member, I was back and forth about what I wanted to do. And then I had that material, so I just figured I'm going to make it that, and it can be pretty darn simple. And I do need to probably throw the rack back on there to verify I'm going to have some steering clearance, or we might be needing to relocate the engine some more. This is going to be a bit of an issue. Got the block outline there, and it comes straight down into the top of the steering. We got a 4-inch thick cage that goes on the bottom of this block, so that is going to be an issue. The steering is set up where it needs to go, so the only way that I could do anything different here would be moving the engine back until we have enough clearance, which is what we're going to do. Or another possible option would be, if we felt so inclined, we could change the wheelbase of the car and move that rack and cross member forward until it cleared. This was actually something that I have thought about trying to do, largely just for getting the spacing between the front of the door and the wheel center line a little further out on the car. It helps with approach angle, as far as, you know, going into the trailer and all kinds of different stuff there, and, you know, with having a splitter on the front, how close we can get to the ground, because the Cutlass is very long from the front axle center line to the nose compared to most other track cars. I don't know how far back we'll end up moving the engine. Downside here, like why I picked this, was to make it real easy with the firewall for where I wanted to put the firewall in the car. I guess it'll just be a little more complicated to sheet metal for making the firewall later, but I mean, the steering versus the tire kind of sets where all that goes, and then we got to make everything else fit around it. So probably going to come back at least 2 inches in order for everything to clear. I might go 3 just to make it a lot easier to work on stuff if I need to, because it's not just a matter of the U-joint and steering shaft sitting in there, they also need to be removable. And, you know, the easier I can make everything to work on, the better. This kind of works out. So right now my plan is the lower control arm mount and gussets there. I'm going to have one that mounts to the back of the control arm and comes up. We'll actually be able to slide this front plate to the back side of that and have it come up and have that be acting as a motor mount slash gusset slash front suspension holding stuff. And that's going to automatically be like 1 7/8 inches right off the bat, and then we can just make some standoffs if it needs to go more than that. Should be a really easy setup, and it's cool because they'll be doing a lot of things with one part. And that will end up looking like what I've got drawn out here. So the gusset that goes on the front will start at the bottom outside the frame, come down, it'll overlap the center cross member. I'll be able to put a nice weld seam all the way up. I'll be able to weld the bottom side, and then it'll come up to about here, put a radius on it, and then have this stand up and then put 2 bolt holes in it for holding the front plate. And I'll trim back away on that. It'll be easier once I draw it in actual CAD to be able to judge where everything's going to be. I mean, I don't want to just be a block straight up. I'll scalp it out, save a little bit of weight there. The front lower control arm mount is going to be in line with the lower control arm. We are going to angle it like you saw in the laser setup. And for that I came up with these tabs. One's just going to have a 1/2 inch inner slot. One's going to be set up for taking the slugs, because we only need the slug on one side to adjust the height and have it hold. And then once it's tight, just the friction is going to hold everything with the bolts tight. And the nice thing here is I was able to, it happens to be an angle it's not perfect, but it's pretty close, where I can just make the same bracket and then flip it around. So kind of looking at it this way, this will be the front side, and then I'll have one that's flipped, and that'll be the back side, just from the offset it's making. You know, one's angled on the frame like that, and then the other one will be angled on the frame over there. I got it fairly cleaned up here in the shop last night. Just kind of moved some stuff around, swept the floors, took out a bunch of the tires, put them in storage in the trailer. It'll be easy to get at them if I need them throughout the winter. I'm going to dive into a side project here with this desk, because I got this big opening where the chair would go underneath. And I'm going to add a shelf to that, because I got some metal pile up here on the floor, and then I got these 5-gallon pails over here you can just see at the side of the shot. I think I can get rid of at least 2 of them 5-gallon pails, plus the stuff laying on the floor, if I put a shelf underneath this cart. And now with some wheels on this, it'll make it a lot easier to move around. It'll actually still tuck under the bench on the other side. It's a little taller now. I'll have to cut some drop downs off of there, but it'll fit nice. Yes, thanks. Ah, I know it's cold outside. We keep telling you that, but it's not going to change. Mm-hmm. Well, that worked out pretty well. I'm down to just one bucket with some exhaust pipe and some longer pieces in it. Otherwise, almost all of it went into the cart. Was kind of disappointed I needed to use up a 3/16 piece of sheet steel. It was pretty nice, but actually it was a pretty big sheet, so I still got a bunch of leftover. I mean, for anything I'm going to be doing bracket-wise or anything like that, it's going to be a lot smaller. I still got a lot of material left over, but man, it's nice just to see how much more floor space I'm getting. Got rid of some other stuff that was piled over there. It was like a transmission goes onto an engine stand kind of a thing. I don't know. Clearly it wasn't meant for the engine stand that I have, and it was just a bunch of junk laying around that I didn't need. So getting rid of some of that, trying to make it nice and clean here in the shop. That's all for this week. It was fun having a couple buddies over and helping out on Saturday. I feel like we didn't get a lot done, but we still got a lot done. The big thing here was the cross member and really getting the whole front suspension mounts and just a really good plan together for that. It's not really good camera stuff. It's a lot of measuring and figuring out where things can fit, where you want them to fit, and all that. But I got to work on some of those drawings. I'll be able to get some of that stuff laser cut and ordered this week. If it's quick, maybe I'll have it by the next weekend, in which case it'll show up in the next video. But otherwise, we got some parts here already. Gonna be able to do a little bit of work with that. Mainly got the torque boxes in the back and starting on the propeller for the Watts link. But there'll definitely be a lot of new stuff coming next week. I got tubing on order for building the lower control arms. I have pivots here for welding those on to make the lower control arm. I have ball joints coming. I've got upper control arms coming. and a few other parts too. We'll have plenty to work on, and it'll look like a lot more progress next video.